Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to pull out the really key insights from some fascinating sources.
Yeah.
Today, we're taking a really profound plunge into Neville Goddard's teachings. We're drawing heavily from his 1952 lecture series, which you can find compiled in the book, The Creative Use of Imagination. Our mission really is to unpack his pretty radical idea that you, yes, you listening, hold the keys to creating your own reality. Just imagine this for a second. There's this story, maybe a parable Neville liked. Five brothers, right? They trust only their physical eyes, go on a journey, get completely lost, hopeless. But their little sister, blind from birth, she sees differently. In her mind's eye, she weaves this delicate, invisible golden thread, connecting her to the sun, to warmth, to guidance. While her brothers are wandering lost, she just follows that inner connection, finds her way home, never loses it. And that story, well, it just perfectly captures Neville Goddard's core teaching. There's this invisible imaginative light inside us, and it can guide us way more reliably than our five senses ever could.
Absolutely. And Neville's core assertion, it really is radical, he says, flat out. Imagining creates the facts of your life.
Mm.
The key insight here, the real sort of golden nugget, if you like, is that everything you experience outwardly, everything in your physical world,
Mm-hmm.
it started inside. Is a thought, maybe a feeling, an imaginal act, all within your consciousness. It suggests there's no, external fate totally separate from your inner world. You are the architect.
Yeah, that's a profound claim. So, okay, how do we start to unpack what that really means for our everyday lives? Like, what are the foundational things we need to grasp first? We're going to explore how consciousness is the only reality, how Neville's signature law of assumption can be used practically, and how practices like self-observation can genuinely awaken our creative power. Really bring these maybe mystical sounding ideas right into your daily life.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll light these up with direct quotes from the creative use of imagination, share specific examples too, to make them, accessible, inspiring, hopefully. Because the ultimate aim really is for you, the listener, to feel empowered to actually go out and prove these principles in your own life. Because as Neville reminds us, your world, in the end, it's shaped from within. It really is.
Okay, so let's dive right into that first core principle then. Neville famously taught that imagination is, well, nothing less than God in action. For someone new to this, that sounds huge. How should they really start to wrap their head around that idea? It's more than just daydreaming, right?
Right, it's much more. And the implication is fascinating. Neville clarifies, he says, the human imagination and divine imagination are one and the same.
Yeah.
When this faculty, your imagination, is truly free, he says, it can accomplish miracles. So this means your imagined thoughts, your visions, those feelings you conjure up, they aren't just idle fantasies, they have actual reality. They are, in a sense, the blueprints of the world to come.
Mm.
Imagination is the very power that calls things that are not seen as though they were
Yeah.
and makes them so.
Mm.
So the core takeaway is that the creative power you're looking for isn't outside you somewhere. It is you. It's your imaginative capacity.
Hmm. And when Neville talks about Christ, he's not using it in the traditional religious way, is he? It's more allegorical. He means your own wonderful human imagination. That's your savior, because it can lift you out of any situation.
Exactly that. It's an inner power. Think about it. Every invention, every great achievement, every major change, it all began as an idea, an image in someone's mind. Neville had a student, Margaret, who described this aha moment. She said, I had found the cause of all life, that my very thought, mixed with feeling, was an imaginal act which created the facts in my world.
Realizing that is incredibly empowering. It means you stop being a victim of circumstances. You become an active creator.
It really is, because it implies we're always imagining, always creating our world, whether we know it or not. Most of us probably do it unconsciously. We let fears, old patterns, run the show in our imagination, and then we wonder why we get results we don't want. But becoming conscious of this power means you can actually direct it, deliberately.
And Neville put it so simply, didn't he? Assume you are what you want to be, and you will become it.
The key here isn't just thinking about it. It's about truly imagining and feeling yourself already being that person, already having that thing. You live from the end, as he put it, and then you just let the world catch up, let it rearrange itself.
Right. He gave some really concrete examples of this working, like the woman who desperately wanted to reconcile with a family member she was estranged from. So every night she imagined talking with them, feeling like everything was forgiven, everything was okay, and pretty quickly a series of events just happened and led to this heartfelt reunion. Or the guy who needed a job. He nightly imagined really vividly shaking hands with an employer, hearing, congratulations, you're hired, feeling that relief, that joy. And sure enough, an offer just materialized, seemingly out of the blue, but exactly as he'd imagined it.
Yeah, and skeptics might wave these away as, coincidence.
Yeah.
But people who consistently test this process, they find this correlation. Inner imaginings and outer facts lining up. Neville often pushed people, didn't he?
Yes.
Imagine better than the best you know.
Mm.
It's not really about magical thinking in a simplistic way. It's about aligning your inner state, your consciousness, with your desired outer reality.
Okay, so if we just summarize this first huge idea, imagination is like the workshop of creation.
Mm.
The stories you tell yourself, quietly, in your mind, the pictures you paint there with feeling. They're like the unseen prologue, the script for what's going to unfold in your world. It's like learning to follow that inner golden thread, isn't it? All right, let's shift gears slightly. Let's talk about the very ground of all this. Consciousness itself. Neville's core idea here is, again, pretty striking. Consciousness is the only reality, and everything you see is nothing more than an outpicturing of a state of consciousness.
Yeah, and the implication of that is massive.
Yeah.
It basically means there is no external fate pulling your strings. Your own consciousness is the ultimate cause of everything you experience. So that the world, effectively, it acts like a mirror. It's constantly reflecting back to you what we assume, believe, and feel to be true about ourselves, about life. Like Neville said, there's only one cause, and that is consciousness. Your consciousness is the absolute center. Your world just mirrors and echoes the state you're currently occupying inside.
Which makes it incredibly practical, actually. If you want to change your life, you must change the state of consciousness you're viewing life from. Trying to change the outside stuff, circumstances, people, while you stay the same inside. Well, Neville called that the height of folly. It's basically futile, right? Like trying to change your reflection in the mirror without actually changing yourself.
A perfect example is a recurring pattern of lack, maybe always being short of money. Neville would trace that right back to an inner state, a deep-seated assumption maybe of, I never have enough, or money is hard to come by. No amount of just working harder or budgeting differently will permanently fix that until the person changes that inner consciousness of lack, replaces it with a feeling of abundance, of security. Once they do that, Neville says, outer circumstances have to rearrange. They just have to. As he put it really clearly, your consciousness is the sole cause of the phenomena of your life. Change the cause, you change the effect. Simple as that in theory.
And it's important to clarify, isn't it, that when Neville says consciousness, he doesn't just mean your intellectual thoughts, like what you're thinking about. He means your whole awareness, right? The feelings, the assumptions, that basic sense of I am that you carry around all the time. Your whole inner world. He says the universe of experiences out there is intimately and inseparably linked to the universe in here. That's that old mystical saying, isn't it? As within, so without.
Exactly. And this is where Neville gives that gentle but really firm warning. Be careful about believing in any power outside yourself. The moment you start blaming the situation or another person or bad luck for your problems, you're literally giving away your creative power. You're seeing something else is in charge. He called belief in these secondary causes, anything other than consciousness itself, a tyrant, something you have to overthrow in your own mind. Any belief that says, I'm not the cause, becomes a source of limitation.
But that's also the incredibly liberating part of it all, isn't it? If you caused it on some level of your consciousness, then you can change it. You don't have to wait for the world to get its act together or for someone else to change. You can start shifting your inner state right now and trust that the outer world will eventually follow suit. No more blaming the universe because I can't find my keys, huh? Maybe my inner dialogue about losing things needs a rewrite.
Exactly. And Neville used that great metaphor. Consciousness is like the light in a projector, and your chosen state is the slide. The light itself, your pure awareness, it's neutral. It can project any picture. But what you admit into consciousness, which slide you put in, that determines what gets projected onto the screen of your life, the screen of space. So if you don't want the movie that's playing out there, you don't go wrestling with the screen. You just quietly change the slide inside your mind.
Okay, that leads us perfectly into Neville's signature teaching. The technique for actually doing this, the law of assumption, which means simply assuming the feeling of your wish fulfilled.
That's it, in a nutshell. It means consciously taking on the mood, the state of consciousness, that you would have if your desire were already a solid fact right now. You claim it. You occupy that end state in your imagination first. As Neville famously said, for an assumption, though false, if persisted in, will harden into fact. It's all about living from the desired outcome, not just wishing for it from a place of lack.
So walk us through that practically. Say someone wants a successful business. They don't just sit there hoping for it. They imaginatively assume they are already a successful business owner. Right now, maybe they see themselves in their busy office. They hear clients praising their work. And crucially, they feel it. They feel the pride, the excitement, the security of that success. That feeling is the key, isn't it?
It is the key. And Neville gives specific instructions. He says this imaginal act works best when you're in a relaxed, drowsy state. Right before you fall asleep or just as you're waking up. He called it SAT state, akin to sleep. That's when the conscious mind is quieter and the subconscious is more receptive, more open to suggestion. You get into that state, you perform your imaginal act with feeling, and then, this is important, you go about your days trusting that your assumption is fact, even if there's zero evidence outside. That's what he means by living from the end. You carry that feeling with you.
And here's the bit that can be tricky but is so important. Signs will follow, they do not precede. You have to assume the consciousness, the feeling of already having your desire before any outward signs pop up. You have to be the cause, not wait to be the effect.
Right. And when doubt creeps in or the facts of your current reality try to pull you back, persistence is everything. Neville calls it brazen impudence. I love that phrase. It's that audacious refusal to give up on your inner knowing no matter what the outside world looks like. If you slip, if you fall back into doubt, you don't beat yourself up. You just gently, firmly return to your assumption. Like a traveler who took a wrong turn, you just correct your course and head back toward your imaginal destination.
It's really fascinating how modern brain science is kind of catching up with this now. You look at people like Dr. Joe Dispenza, his work shows that when you immerse yourself in these imagined scenes with real sensory detail, real emotion, you're actually conditioning your brain and body. You're firing and wiring new neural pathways. Your brain starts to experience it as real before it happens externally. It's not just woo-woo, it's like neuroplasticity in action. It's a mental rehearsal that literally prepares your whole being for that future you're imagining.
Neville used some wonderful metaphors for this, too. He talked about wearing a mood like a piece of clothing. Like a new suit might feel a bit stiff or unnatural at first, but the more you wear it, the more it becomes yours, feels comfortable. It's the same with a new state of consciousness. Your job is to persist until that feeling of the wish fulfilled feels natural, normal, like it's just who you are now. Another great one is the assumption as a seed planted in the soil of your subconscious. Persisting in the feeling is like watering the seed. It doesn't just pop up overnight. It works quietly, under the surface. And then, often when you least expect it, the outer world just blossoms. It takes the form of your assumption.
And Neville gives this incredible, almost breathtaking assurance. If you will assume your desire and live there as though it were true, no power on earth can stop it from becoming a fact. That's a bold claim, but it definitely makes you want to put it to the test, doesn't it?
It really does. And what people find is, once you've done that inner work, once you've shifted your state, you often find yourself naturally taking the right actions.
Yeah.
Not out of frantic effort, but just inspired steps that lead towards the goal. Because you're coming from that place of already being there. And the world does seem to cooperate, like that woman Neville mentioned who sold her house really quickly. She just consistently imagined seeing a sold sign on the lawn and felt that immense joy and relief. Within a week, an unexpected buyer showed up, offered exactly what she wanted. It's like he says, the world will always echo our inner song.
The world will always echo our inner song. That's a powerful thought. And it leads us right into the heart of what Neville calls the art of living from the end, which really is also the art of inner transformation. To manifest a new life, you actually have to become a new self.
Yes. He often uses biblical stories allegorically to explain this, like the idea of dying to the old self and rising as the new self. He explains that being born again isn't about a physical event, but it's a psychological process. It's about radically changing how you define yourself, changing your fundamental state of being.
He even uses that metaphor of turning water into wine, doesn't he? Where water represents just the plain, ordinary facts of life, and wine symbolizes joy, fulfillment, the richer experience. He says your human imagination has the power to perform this kind of inner alchemy, like transforming a meager bank account into a feeling and then the reality of financial freedom, or like that woman he talked about whose chronic skin condition just cleared up after she revised it in her imagination. She imagined her skin clear, felt the relief, and it happened, baffling her doctors.
And Neville is incredibly optimistic about this power. He affirms quite strongly, there is not a problem that cannot be resolved by a change of consciousness. Whatever the challenge, no matter how big it seemed, there's a level of consciousness, a state you can occupy where that problem is already solved. Doesn't exist. But getting there, well, that involves letting go of the old beliefs, the old grievances that keep you stuck in the problem state.
He even has this fascinating technique for what he calls forgiveness by self-change, which is Quite radical. If someone wrongs you, instead of blaming them, you look inside. You find the quality, the assumption in yourself that attracted that situation, and you change that because, as he famously taught, everyone in your world is yourself pushed out. So changing your inner state indirectly frees the other person to change their role in your reality too. It's a really profound way to handle relationships. Like the student who saved her marriage by consistently imagining loving interactions with her husband, feeling that connection until the outer reality shifted.
Yes, and that connects to this incredibly empowering idea. As you rise in consciousness, you take all men with you. By seeing others in your imagination in their highest possible light as the best version of themselves, you actually help lift them. It makes imagination not just a tool for personal gain, but a tool for real compassion.
It sounds like it requires real discipline, though, mastering your inner world. Neville uses that metaphor of riding a new horse, doesn't he? Mastering a new feeling, a new mood, say, feeling secure when you've always felt insecure. He acknowledges that patience and practice are needed. It's part of the process of breaking it in, making that new state feel natural.
And he promises that this inner transformation, this persistent change of state, is what sets up the bridge of incidence. He says, think it is real, and it is, for everything is possible to a thought. Your only job really is to maintain that new state, that new feeling, and then life itself, the universe, God, whatever term you prefer, will find a way to build the bridge, often in surprising ways, to bring it into your physical reality. Like the man who needed $5,000. He simply imagined his bank statement showing the desired amount, felt that intense relief, and boom, an unexpected insurance payout for exactly that amount arrived just when he needed it.
So ultimately, this isn't just a technique you do for 5 minutes a day. It's a lifestyle. It requires constant self-awareness throughout your day. Which brings us perfectly to our next really crucial topic, self-observation. Right. So this idea of needing constant self-awareness, being mindful throughout the day, that leads us straight into the practice Neville called self-observation. Sometimes he called it self-remembering or becoming an observing eye. What does that actually involve?
It's essentially about watching your own thoughts, your moods, your reactions, almost like you're a detached witness, a second person just observing yourself objectively. By doing this, you start to become aware of where your consciousness currently is at any given moment. Are you dwelling in lack or abundance, fear or faith? Neville really emphasized this. Watch your reactions to life, for any change in the arrangement of your mind will cause a change in your outer world. Your reactions reveal your current state.
So a practical example might be, you catch yourself feeling a pang of jealousy when a friend shares good news. Instead of just letting that feeling run wild, you observe it, acknowledge it, and then consciously choose to revise it. You shift to a feeling of genuine happiness for them, maybe a firm abundance for everyone. Is that the idea?
Exactly that. It's not about judging yourself harshly, like, oh, I shouldn't feel jealous. It's more about cultivating this gentle, continuous awareness. By detaching just a little bit from that automatic reactive self, you gain the freedom to choose a different state, to consciously say, okay, that reaction came up, but I don't need to stay there. I choose this other feeling instead.
I like thinking of it as doing little mental check-ins during the day, just pausing for a second and asking, okay, where am I right now psychologically? What's my dominant mood? What story am I telling myself about this situation? Ah. And if you find you've drifted into a negative or unhelpful state, you just gently, without force, guide yourself back to your desired state, back to the feeling of the wish fulfilled.
Yes. And this leads directly to one of Neville's most powerful instructions. Watch your thoughts. Reclaim your throne and consciously allow your human imagination to rule your world.
This really gets at the idea of maintaining a mental diet. Just like you choose what food you put in your body, you consciously choose what thoughts and feelings you entertain in your mind. You basically refuse to spend your precious mental energy on things you don't want to experience or perpetuate. Like that example Neville gave of the shy, anxious woman. She went on a strict mental diet, systematically refusing thoughts of awkwardness and instead imagining herself confident, outgoing, feeling at ease. And over time, she became that person.
And he also taught that really powerful technique called revision, didn't he? For dealing with things after they've happened. At the end of the day, you mentally replay any scenes or events that didn't go the way you wanted, but you replay them as you wished they had happened. He said this actually neutralizes the negative impact and trains your mind to automatically lean towards the ideal in the future. It's like editing your day's mental script. It is powerful, and persistence with all this self-observation, mental diet, revision, it really pays off. As you consciously sacrifice those old negative mental habits, you start to experience what Neville called the holy water of a clearer, more peaceful mind. And this ultimately leads to what he termed mental sovereignty, where your mind stops being this wild reactive thing and becomes a loyal, obedient servant to your conscious intentions.
And Neville connects all this self-mastery directly to awakening the Christ within, which, again, for him means awakening your creative imagination. The more awake you become, the more conscious you are through self-observation, the more deliberately and powerfully you can direct your imagination. He even suggested that when imagination is fully awakened, it becomes something more like divine vision, seeing reality from a higher perspective.
So, to sum it up, self-observation is like meticulously polishing the mirror of your mind so it can reflect your ideal image more clearly, more purely. You're essentially learning to write a new autobiography for yourself in real time, becoming the conscious, deliberate narrator of your own life story, your own fate. It's how you keep hold of that inner golden thread and follow it back to your true, powerful self.
Wow, okay, we have covered a lot of ground today. From imagination being this divine creative force to the practical nuts and bolts of the law of assumption and this need for inner transformation and self-awareness. But with ideas this big, this radical, there are always questions, common sticking points, maybe even misunderstandings. So let's maybe take a few moments to tackle some of those directly, get into some Q&A territory.
Good idea. One thing people often get confused about is the difference between Neville's law of assumption and the more widely known law of attraction. They sound similar.
Wow.
Are they the same? Well, they're related, definitely rooted in the same principle that thoughts influence reality. But Neville's law of assumption is very specific. It's about embodying the feeling that your desire is already fulfilled, right now. You literally assume the state of being the person who has what they want. The law of attraction is often presented more as like attracts, like your thoughts send out a vibration that attracts similar things back to you. The crucial difference, maybe, is the emphasis. Neville puts the power squarely on you, shifting your internal state of being. You are the operant power, the cause. It feels less like trying to attract something from out there and more about becoming it from in here.
That's a really helpful distinction. It feels more direct, more about internal mastery. And you keep coming back to that word, feeling. Why is feeling so incredibly important in Neville's method? It seems to be the real linchpin for everything.
It absolutely is. Neville famously declared, feeling is the secret. Why? Because feelings are what truly impress an idea upon the subconscious mind. Your subconscious, the deeper part of you that actually does the creating, it doesn't really respond to just dry intellectual words or thoughts. It responds to feelings and vivid images. When you generate the genuine feeling of your wish already being fulfilled, the joy, the relief, the security, whatever it is you're speaking the language of the subconscious, you're signaling belief. You're generating that creative vibration that compels the outer world, the mirror, to reflect that inner reality back to you. Without the feeling, it's just wishful thinking. It lacks the creative fire.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, Neville uses a lot of biblical references, quotes scripture. Do you need to be religious or specifically Christian to actually use his methods effectively?
No, not at all. That's a common question. Neville's use of the Bible is entirely metaphorical, allegorical, mystical. It's not literal or dogmatic in a traditional religious sense. He was very clear that these biblical stories represent universal psychological dramas, states of consciousness, and timeless truths that apply to every single human being, regardless of their religious beliefs or background. His methods are fundamentally about the laws of mind, the laws of consciousness. You could call them spiritual, but not sectarian. Many people who are atheist, agnostic, or follow other spiritual paths have found his techniques incredibly effective because they are based on these universal psychological principles.
Right. It's about the psychology, not the dogma. Good.
Yeah.
Now, here's a really practical one, and one that causes a lot of frustration for people. How long does it actually take to manifest something using Neville's techniques? Because sometimes you imagine, and you wait, and wait.
Ah, yes, the timing question. And the honest answer is, there's no fixed timetable, which, yes, can be frustrating when you're eager. It really depends on a few factors. How naturally can you assume and maintain the feeling? How much inner resistance or doubt are you holding on to, maybe unconsciously? Sometimes the bridge of incidence, the series of events needed to bring it about, might be quite complex and take time to unfold naturally.
Yeah.
Neville himself told the story of manifesting his trip back to Barbados that took several weeks, but events unfolded perfectly. Yet, he also spoke of others where the desire took years to materialize, often because their conviction wavered. The key thing he stressed is persistence without anxiety, trusting that the inner shift is the creation and the outer manifestation will follow. He assures us, the vision has its own appointed hour. It will not be late. But you can't force the timing by worrying about it.
Okay, trust the process. Another big question. Can I use this for other people? can I manifest on behalf of others? And how does my imagination actually affect other people in my world?
Yes, definitely. This ties back to that core idea. Everyone in your world is yourself pushed out. Your reality is a reflection of your consciousness. So you can absolutely influence or help others through your imagination, but you do it by changing your assumption of them. Neville considered this the highest form of prayer or intervention. To see another person in your imagination as you wish them to be healthy, happy, successful, as though it were already true for them. Feel the joy for them. Now, this doesn't mean you can magically control another person against their will. Free will is complex. But by transforming your inner concept of them, say you stop seeing someone as difficult and start imagining them as cooperative and kind, you will often find either their behavior towards you changes, or perhaps they naturally drift out of your experience if the old pattern can no longer play out. You're fundamentally changing your projection, and your world has to reflect that change.
Right, so you change your perception, your assumption about them, and your experienced reality of them shifts.
Oh.
Interesting. Okay, last big one, the real troubleshooting question. What if I've been imagining my wish, I've been trying to feel it real, and just nothing seems to be happening? What do I do then? What are the tips for those moments of doubt and frustration?
Yeah, that's a really common sticking point. It happens. Don't give up. First, remember that the bridge of incidence might be unfolding unseen. The seed could be germinating underground, even if you don't see sprouts yet. Second, honestly check your inner consistency. Have you truly lived in the assumption? Or have you been wavering, checking the 3D world constantly for proof, which implies you don't really believe it yet? Third, try to release attachment and anxiety. Obsessing over when or how it will happen actually reinforces the feeling of lack, the feeling that you don't have it yet. Gently let go of the neediness. Fourth, maybe revisit your imaginal act. Is it truly implying fulfillment? Does it generate the genuine feeling? Sometimes a slight tweak to the scene makes all the difference. Fifth, be open to subtle signs or shifts, but don't desperately hunt for them. Just notice if things start feeling different. And most importantly, the advice Neville would thunder again and again is persist, persist, persist. He told stories of people persisting for months, even years, holding true to their vision despite no outer evidence, and eventually it did harden into fact. He'd say, if you do not persist, you are going right back to sleep. The subconscious mind, the creative power, ultimately yields to a mind that refuses to take no for an answer. It respects that unwavering conviction.
Persist, persist, persist. Okay, that seems like a core message running through all of this. So as we start to wrap up this really deep dive today, maybe just take a moment to let that core message sink in. You are both the dreamer and the dream. You're an artist of spirit, as Neville might say, and every assumption you make, every feeling you entertain is like a brushstroke on the canvas of your reality. That inner golden thread we talked about, it's always there, always waiting for you to grasp it and follow it home.
Absolutely. Remember that your consciousness, your awareness of being, that's the key. Your imagination is the workshop where you shape reality. And your feelings, they set the vibrational tone. They give life to your creations. Life is essentially inviting you constantly to dare to assume the best, to lift yourself in imagination to the highest, most wonderful ideal you can possibly conceive for yourself and for others.
So maybe here's a final provocative thought, a call to action for you listening. Really commit to becoming the awakened dreamer of your life. Maybe start tonight, just before you drift off to sleep. Get into that quiet, drowsy state and consciously dream a better dream. Choose a desire, imagine it fulfilled, and really truly feel it real just for a few moments. See what happens.
Because this isn't really about learning a one-time trick to get stuff. It's about adopting a whole new way of living. It's about entering into a conscious partnership with the creative universe within you. It's an ongoing journey of self-discovery, self-mastery, and conscious creation.
And always, always remember, your imagination has no limits, no ceiling. If you ever feel lost or doubtful, just return to the absolute basics. Return to the core of your being, I am. Center yourself in that simple, powerful awareness. And remember that whatever you attach to that I am, whatever you claim to be, shapes your entire existence.
And let's close with Neville Goddard's own powerful words, a reminder of who you truly are. You are the universe unveiled to itself. You possess this incredible, mystical, yet utterly practical power within you. The power to turn the water of your current circumstances into the wine of your fulfilled desires. To turn lack into abundance, despair into joy. The pen is truly in your hand. The page is blank, and the ink. The ink is the divine spark of your own wonderful human imagination. Dare to write a magnificent story.